King Tutankhamun, also known as King Tut, is one of the most famous Egyptian kings. However, unlike most famous Egyptian kings, King Tut's fame comes from his tomb and the interesting things inside it: jewelry, weapons, statues, royal clothes, gold, precious stones, and a curse. Welcome back to our channel. In this video, we'll look inside the tomb of King Tutankhamun and find out what the archaeologists were hiding. When the tomb was found, the tomb of Tutankhamun, also called K62, is where Tutankhamun was buried. He was a pharaoh of the 18th dynasty of ancient Egypt and ruled from 1334 to 1325 BC. In 1902, a group of excavators led by Theodore Davis looked for the tomb in the Valley of the Kings. They worked there until 1914. Several of the tombs they found were easy to get to, and while they didn't find the tomb of Tutankhamun, they found pits with items with his name written on them. These items were thought to have belonged to Tutankhamun or been used for his funeral. After years of digging and searching, Davis's team soon gave up their exploration, believing there was still more of Tutankhamun's story to be found in the valley. Howard Carter, an English archaeologist, decided to dig as deep as the valley's bedrock. On November 4, 1922, one of Carter's workers stumbled on a stair that led to an underground staircase. After a few weeks of more digging, the antechamber and entrance to King Tutankhamun's tomb were found. Carter wrote that the number and condition of the artifacts they found in the entryway were interesting. Many of them had been deeply affected by moisture, which probably came from the plaster stem state when the tomb was first sealed, and from water seepage over the centuries until it was excavated. The discovery of this underground tomb, or more accurately, a part of it, was a huge step forward for tourism in Egypt. King Tut's tomb in the Commons. When King Tutankhamun took the throne in 1334 BC, plans were made for his large burial chamber. However, the king had a lot of health problems. He had a clubbed foot, a weak immune system, and bone disease, and he died of malaria just a few years after becoming king. Since his tomb wasn't finished yet at the time of his death, his advisor and successor had King Tut buried in a non-royal tomb. What was in the tomb? There are 4 rooms and a passage in the tomb. 16 steps lead up to the passageway of the tomb, which can be reached through 2 plaster doors. The door closest to the burial chamber was placed to protect the tomb from thieves. It has King Tut's royal seal and a priest's seal on each side of the doorpost. The passage leads into the antechamber. The antechamber is the largest room in the tomb, lined with golden artifacts down each side. At the antechamber entrance, 2 life-size Tutankhamun statues stand guard. In this room, 3 gold-painted wooden chairs had other things on them. There were statues, baskets, mannequins, pieces of chariots, and several chests in the antechamber. Some chests had tunics, shirts, kilts, gloves, sandals, and makeup. Antechamber. Strange animals, statues, and gold were all over the room. The details of the room slowly emerged from the mist. The most important things in the antechamber were a group of funerary beds with animal heads against the west wall, an alabaster lotus chalice, and a painted box with a picture of Tutankhamun in battle. Carter thought the box was one of the best art pieces in the tomb. However, he said that getting rid of the artifacts was hard because it was hard to move one thing without putting another in danger. King Tut's throne is another important part of the antechamber. It was put there so the king would have a place to sit in the afterlife. There were between 600 and 700 objects in the antechamber. Annex. There is a small doorway between the furniture against the west wall of the antechamber that leads into the next room, the annex. When it was found, the annex had more than 2,000 different artifacts. The annex is the smallest and messiest room in the tomb, but it was probably not always like that. It is thought that the mess was made by thieves who broke into the tomb and stole artifacts worth almost $1 million. Carter wrote that the discovery of this second chamber and its full contents gave us pause. Until now, the excitement had kept us from stopping to think, but now we started to realize what a big job we had ahead of us and how much responsibility it came with. This was no ordinary find that could be dealt with in a normal season's work, and there was no example to show us how to handle it. The annex has beds, stools, stone, and pottery vessels with wine and oils, most of the tomb's food, most of the shop teas, and many of its wooden funerary models were kept in the room. It also had board games, like the Senate, that ancient Egyptians used to play. Most of the weapons in the tomb were found in the annex, along with things the person used as a child, like toys, paint, and a fire-starting kit. Burial place. The burial chamber is the most important room in the tomb, but is also the most hidden. The only sign of its existence is a strangely built wall that must be chiseled through. 4 decorated walls surround the burial chamber. These are the only decorated walls in the tomb. The east wall shows Tutankhamun's funeral procession, a common image in private New Kingdom tombs, but not in royal tombs. The north wall shows the opening of the mouth ritual on Tutankhamun's mummy, making him the king's heir, and then Tutankhamun greeting deities in the afterlife. The king and the 3 other gods were shown on the south wall. The west wall has a picture of 12 baboons and a passage from the first part of a funeral text that talks about what happens in the afterlife. Egyptologist Aliyah Ismail and her team looked at the paintings on the walls. Based on the painting's quality and decoration, she concluded that the paintings were done quickly, probably because Tutankhamun died suddenly. The sarcophagus and the 4 golden wooden coffins that surrounded it took up most of the space in the tomb. Between the first and second coffins was a wooden frame with a blue linen pall and bronze rosettes. The coffin holding King Tutankhamun's mummified body was made of 2,500 pounds of gold. Inside the layers of mummy wrappings were 143 items, including clothes and accessories like sandals, an insane number of amulets, jewelry, and 2 daggers. On Tutankhamun's head was a beaded skull cap and a gold diadem in a golden mask. This mask is one of the world's most famous and valuable ancient Egyptian artifacts. It is worth about $2 million. Aside from King Tutankhamun's coffin, the burial chamber also had jars, walking sticks, and other religious items. Treasury. The treasury is the last room in the tomb. The entrance is guarded by the Jedi god Anubis. This room has the king's most valuable treasures, shrines, chests, and statues of Egyptian gods. The treasury also had 14 boats, all of which faced west. Boats are an important part of Egyptian funerals because they are considered the dead person's ticket to the afterlife. There were more than enough boats in the king's treasury to carry the king and his shaktas. The king's organs were in 4 canopic jars that were part of the treasure. This room also had 2 small coffins with the mummies of King Tutankhamun's stillborn daughters. Lost treasures. After Carter and his team found the antechamber, they moved all the artifacts to Cairo's Egyptian museums and storage facilities. From there, some were auctioned and sold thousands of miles away from King Tutankhamun's tomb in the Valley of the Kings in Giza, Cairo, where $1 billion Grand Museum and Research Center is still being built. When the Giza Museum, also called the Great Egyptian Museum Gem, is finished, it will house more than 5,000 artifacts found in King Tut's tomb. For the first time in 100 years, everyone will be able to see all of the artifacts from King Tutankhamun's tomb in the same place. Archaeologists work around the clock to find lost or broken parts of these old things being put together at the museum. The Grand Egyptian Museum is expected to be done being built sometime in 2022. A director at GEM, Dr. Tarek Tafik, said that some details keep coming up and to tell us more. Find out about the old things. Archaeologists hope to learn new and interesting things about King Tutankhamun by looking at each artifact at the Grand Museum with new technology. Even though Tutankhamun's non-royal tomb was unusual for an Egyptian pharaoh, it is the only tomb with so much historical value today. That's it for today. Let us know in the comment box if you know about Pharaoh Tutankhamun's greedy advisor feels about that. Thanks for watching this video. Remember to hit the like button and subscribe if you want to learn more about our channel.